Hi everyone. Today I'm going to come in front of the camera because I want to talk to somebody who has been doing quite a lot of things in the space of fintech, but also in promoting and looking at women in tech in Hong Kong. So with me today is Medhy Souidi, who heads the Accelerator Program and Innovation at DBS. But more importantly, not many people may know this, he is one of the co-founders of the Women in Tech group in Hong Kong. So Medhy, welcome to Fintech Minute Steak, which will make it a
Thank you very much for
5-minute steak today.
having me
Conversing
today.
about this. So here we are sitting in Marina Bay Sands. Both of us are here. We're on a panel to talk about payments before this. And I wanted to have this conversation with Medhy because the He for She campaign, I think, is a very important element of how we look to bring diversity and equality in the workspace, but in particular in fintech, which is finance, which is largely dominated by men, and tech, again, where you do tend to see a skew towards men more than women. And when you combine the two, the number of women may not be as much, though Hong Kong has a decent number of women. So to start off with, Medhy, I want to know from your perspective, how did this women in tech in Hong Kong, how did this build up, and how are you the only male in this process? How did you get into this?
So, remember we met in 2016.
Yeah.
It was at Cyberport, and it was one of the first fintech events there, I think.
Correct,
And
yeah.
When we were to that event, I think I didn't remember seeing many women there, and all the panel discussion was about men and men. And we had a couple of events coming there. We had the Fintech Week.
Yeah.
And I remember at that time we had only few experts like Maxine, Maker,
Yeah.
and Karen speaking on stage, but not so many women. And one of the things happening to me every time when I lost my phone, my wallet, my keys, is calling my mom and ask my mom, did you see my wallet, my phone, or
Okay.
I can't remember if I don't have
Yeah,
my phone,
sure,
but,
yeah.
but my keys. And I was wondering, like all these men who are entrepreneurs, sometimes fathers as well, how they deal every day with the different problems they have. And what is the point of view of a woman? Because women have more wisdom for me,
Yeah.
and take more like strategic decisions most of the time.
Okay.
So everything started in 2017, where I asked Michael and a couple of other women's influencers on Hong Kong to come around the table to do a breakfast meeting, and everything started here. So
Yeah.
the discussion give some getaway and
Yeah.
some key actions that they want to do,
Okay.
doing more events, including more people. And it was really funny to start with 20 person on the table, to go for a networking event with 100 persons, and
Yeah.
going to different events with a couple of impact over the past year. So I'm super happy to see that now for the Fintech Association, for example,
Yeah.
and a couple of speakers, when there is a panel discussion and there is no woman on the panel discussion, people can refuse to go on stage
Correct.
and ask
Yeah.
to have at least 40% or try to have 50% or even more a woman on the panel discussion, discuss with them, share the point of view, share the
Yeah.
experience as an entrepreneur, tech speakers, or also innovators, because we have many women entrepreneurs, many women tech specialists, IT, architects, CTOs or PMO,
Yeah.
and also women working on innovation in different companies, corporate, banking, finance, but also other industry like food and beverage,
Yeah.
property, and also aviation.
Aviation. Look, so when we look at Hong Kong, I think we do have a lot of women leaders in business. A lot of the banks have CEOs or heads of businesses who are women, and you have the group of the women CEOs in Hong Kong as well. But on the ground, right? You mentioned about it starting off as a movement which was about looking at conversation of how men and women, deal with things differently. How have you gone on to look at this and say, okay, beyond the panel discussion, right? Getting diversity in the panel discussion goes beyond gender. But when you're looking at all of this, what, in your opinion, are the key ways to change this in terms of representation? How do we get more women engaged in technology and fintech in particular, and how do we get them to showcase their expertise and knowledge beyond the fact that they're women? I think that should be a secondary note, in my opinion. The fact that they are where they are based on their expertise and their knowledge should be the key focus. But how do we get more women to come out and participate in these fields and increase their representation? And B is, how do we showcase them better? What would be your thought?
I think we spoke about panel discussion, events, and impact of this kind of association. You have C4K, C1K. Sorry, I forgot the name.
Which one?
The event of C4 Tech. You have like many associations.
C4Tech, correct, yeah.
C4Tech, you have women in finance, women in tech, and you have other things like Technovation run by Brian. And
Correct.
one of the things I think is really important here is sharing knowledge, sharing experience, and mentoring.
Yeah.
Mentoring is a part of the journey there to build that confidence between the people, but also open the eyes and seed some ideas on the mind of everyone. So, for example, on Women in Tech now, I think the group is more than on the WhatsApp is more than 250. On the LinkedIn is a couple of hundred of people. There's a website with all this list of person. So we can recommend different speakers. We can push for some topics as well. But mentoring from senior management position to junior is quite important.
Yeah.
Opening the way for next generation is important. One of the things that I'm a bit tired to see it. We speak about diversity every time.
Correct, yeah.
But diversity must not be a word and a focus. It must be something included already, implicit. Sorry. I do believe that there's still some way to do, some work to do here. But mentoring is one of the biggest impact on this ecosystem.
Now, one key thing that I have noticed in a lot of instances, so I used to, when I was doing my MBA, started taking part in WIFA, which is Women in Finance Asia, which is the women's arm of ASIFMA, the Securities Committee. They would run a lot of very good events, right? But there used to be this general perception that because it was being run by WIFA, it's for women only, right? So I used to be one of 100 or 2 or 3 of 100 men present in that room when the conversation was very neutral, wasn't to do with anything about diversity, etc. It was just conversation around that theme and topic, which is what I loved, right? And the access was great. And at times when we do have these conversations about representation of women, or as you said, diversity should be ingrained in a culture, I feel that we often don't have enough representation from both sides. So, for example, as I say, preaching to the choir, right? So you already have people who have bought it. So if you're having a conversation where it's only open for women and the conversations are about women representation, it is well and good because you need to get all the viewpoints and understanding of what people are going through. But how do we get more men engaged, right? Because it's not only going to be the women who are going to make the change, it's also got to be the men who are going to drive it. That's where the he for she is what I want to try to emphasize about. And how are you seeing that changing in Hong Kong? And what do you think institutions, individuals, and even policymakers can do to make this shift before? Also from a women perspective, how can we get more men engaged in these conversations? What is your thought on that?
Well, you still need to engage. I think one of the issue also sometimes is people don't feel engaged or don't feel the passion for doing this, and they don't know yet. Sometimes they also don't know about this event.
Yeah.
So you still need to do some advertising, to push people to come, to chase people. Sometimes you are in a big group of WhatsApp, and you know it with the Fintech Association, and you need still to chase people individually to push them to come. So it's one of the things: engage more people, show more value, and there is an expression I like, is show me the baby, don't show me the pain. So we need to work a lot on different things, on the process, on the workflow also. It's not about tech, but it's also how to gather people together and go for a discussion with an agenda and push these people to deliver key actions.
And how do we get more men engaged? How do we get them involved in these conversations about representation and diversity?
So I think, like, for everything you need to do kind of trade-off and show them what can be the impact that can do, or give them a reason to come. And also, again, I speak about mentorship, but I was mentored in different programs with Technovation, for example, and I'm still following those girls right now.
Correct.
So it's really important to create this kind of bonding, connection, and do regular catch-up, even if it's once a year or twice a year when they come back to Hong Kong, because now they're studying abroad. But it's really important to see the progress of these people and say, oh, maybe one day I had an impact, or maybe one day I just give one sentence that they will remember for the rest of their life, just good advice. And this is already a lot, because if someone will remember you 20 years later because you give good advice, it means that advice was really important for them.
Okay. So I guess the takeaway from that is, try to have conversations which are not just specifically tailored to one narrow brand. You may have that conversation as part of a larger conversation and bring in more people who can engage. So there's some way to attract them, but also talk about how things are changing and how the impact of women is, right? So for me, I'm an ex-trader, and I used to always believe that even though it's a very male-dominated market, that women are actually very good at it. We now, on the board of the association, have 3 traders. 2 two of whom are women. So Maika Stenbach and Karen Conte-Fazem, they're both traders before they got into fintech in the recent past. So you could see that some of the best known traders in history have been women who could really prove themselves because they had better ability to manage their emotions, but also be able to be more better temperamentally, but as smart as they are. Secondly, the Technovation program is great as a young founder school where they have an equal representation, not more representation of girls than boys in their entrepreneurship programs, and that's a way of getting the women and the young kids engaged, and also teaching, I think, from a younger age about having this inclusivity and diversity to bring in equals. Right? Finally, one other element I want to talk about was we've spoken about women, we've spoken about how we can get better representation. Panel discussions, the he for she, or the panel pledge, as we talk about, where a lot of people have signed up to not being on panels where there's no women present. One thing that I have noticed, the nature of my role with the association was for me to speak in a lot of events across the base. Quite a few of the organizers tend to be women as well, and it just so happens that they don't know the right speakers, and they try to find the known speakers globally or whoever's in the region and say they pick up, and then the panel formed is all men, and I point out that you have all men, and they're like, how we didn't notice this. So I think it would be a good place if there can be a resource built out. I know the Women in Tech website is looking to do this, but also encourage anybody listening into this conversation about how you can help others understand who are the leaders. Just the other day I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, where are the women in blockchain in Hong Kong? I don't see too many, and I could easily talk about 5 to 10 women who are very actively engaged and experts in the blockchain space, way ahead than quite a few of the men are. So you could see that there are experts, there are people available, but that resource is not public or it's not widely distributed. So maybe that's a case where you can help build out maybe a section where there are different themes and topics and these are speakers available or who could speak on these topics, and then we can build that out.
So there's also one thing I want to add is it's really interesting to see women developers and the men developers speaking together and speaking about the same technology, but see the mindset behind and how they structure the application, how they structure the code, and how they see in the end the product. I've worked with a couple of really great developers. 2 of them were women in my previous company, and every time we spoke about the project, they were like far beyond that what we want to explore. So they think about the business of the UI, UX, and definitely working with this kind of mindset is definitely super great. Like you go far above and beyond your initial project.
Yeah, and I mean that's the whole thing, right? To stop stereotyping about how each one is and treat them as an individual and drive that conversation from there. So my last point was in general about diversity, right? So we both are classic examples potentially of people who are not from the Greater China region and who are very actively engaged in the Greater China region, and in our cases representing Hong Kong in various spaces. And we do see the diversity in Hong Kong, which is quite accepting and quite large. But how do you see the broader diversity conversation in fintech in Asia? Do you see that we are heading towards the right direction? We have good diversity present, or we still have some work?
I met a couple of founders that are women here, maybe more in South Asia. To be honest, this morning I was with 2 co-founder women as well. Quite interesting. I don't know so much about all the startups on different markets, but what I can see is the representation is quite good. Even for different accelerators, different banks in Thailand, they're including more women than maybe in Hong Kong.
What about cultural diversity and age diversity, as some people mention about it? What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't spoke about the topic with other guys, so I'm not that expert here.
No, just your thoughts on how you feel that contributes to.
I just went many times in Thailand, and I saw in Thailand like women are quite included. So that's my experience there. For Vietnam or other country, I don't really know. Kuala Lumpur as well, there is many women included. Like this morning we were on a panel discussion with the head of marketing for Razor Fintech.
Yes, Karen.
And she's the vice president of the Malaysia Association of Fintech Association. So for Malaysia and Thailand, I can say that I do believe, but still I'm still a newbie there on this market. Women integration is better. Women implication and impact are also stronger.
Okay. So before we close off, any pieces of advice, thoughts you would give to people listening in about diversity? Your final thoughts on that?
don't be shy. Ask everyone about mentorships, men, women, and for the youngest here, if you're still student and you want to do data science, just go for this. If you want to do tech, just go for this because that's the future, and you have more impact than just people doing only business and just focusing on a couple of traditional workflow process. Go for this new technology and speak out. Don't be shy. I'm pretty sure you have so much to share with us. So.
Thank you for sharing so much with us today.
Thank you very much.
I hope it was a very useful conversation. These are thoughts, these are not representations of the organizations we work with. These are personal thoughts for both of us. And here we're just discussing about how we can bring the conversation forward. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this in the comment section. And feel free to reach out to us if you have any further thoughts and how we can help in any initiatives on diversity or he for she as well that we can contribute. So thank you very much and have a nice rest of the day. Thank you, Medhy.
Thank you. Oops. Done.